Hi everyone. Let's talk about stress, baby. So my name is Michelle. I have breast cancer and I've been sharing my journey since July here on in most of the platforms. And I wanted to come on and talk about something that I recently heard, and it's one of those things where you kind of know it, but then you hear it over and over again, and it just solidifies in your brain and starts to percolate, and you really think about where it comes from. So what I recently heard is that one of the main key factors that could contribute to a person getting cancer, having cancer, however you want to phrase that, living with cancer, is stress. And it's like I said, it's one of those things you're like, I think I knew that, like I'd heard that there was, obviously stress is not good for any of us in any circumstance, but obviously my situation now with dealing with the breast cancer, anytime I hear something about what could trigger it or what could help it or make it worse or whatever, it really sits heavy in there, and it works its way through, and it just kind of navigates. And what I wanted to talk about was the type of stress that, in reflection, that I know that I have been dealing with for a number of years. Stress doesn't always mean, oh my God, there's a deadline coming up, I have to finish a project by a certain deadline. It doesn't always mean that kind of stress. It doesn't always mean big, heavy decisions. It can be just day-to-day living things, and unfortunately that's the reality, and it can be many different things compounded. And so I was thinking today about how deep I wanted to go and how much I wanted to share about this. I just don't want to have a hugely long video, so I'm going to try to condense it down to as little as I can. So I've shared before briefly that when I was a teenager, and my sister was 25, my sister committed suicide. She died by suicide. That's a long time ago. That was 1989. You live with that on a daily basis. It's just part of your life. It just becomes who you are, part of who you are. I just tell you that because of other parts of the story that come a little later. When I first bought my home, my mom decided to move. Well, we discussed it and we thought that it would be best that she move with me. She had been living on her own up in the capital area, up in Troy, and it just seemed like the right time. She was getting on in years. She was living on her own. My brothers have their families and their commitments, and I didn't. And I was at a point that I was ready to buy a home. So, she helped me out with the closing costs and some of the down payment costs and the initial things. And then she moved in with me, and it was good for the most part, but she, like I said, she was getting on in years, and some of her health was deteriorating. She had long-standing diabetes that had already, before moving down here, manifested itself in various artery blockages, and things needed to be repaired and replaced and removed and unclogged and all these things. And then she moved down here, and then it just kind of continued. So anyone that has severe diabetes will know that it's not just the insulin that's your problem. It also impacts your blood pressure and your heart health and your cognitive abilities and your healing capabilities, your skin healing capabilities. You don't heal as quickly. And a number of other things. Those are just the big ones. Those are the ones that impacted my mom directly. And, as time went on, certain things would happen that were difficult. And as living with her, and as I said, my brothers have their own lives and they're not nearby. She was relatively close to my one brother before she moved down here, about 45 minutes from him. But the other one's been out in Indiana for over 20 years. So, there's a lot of just physical, geographical distance. We have family in Brooklyn, but again, it's a little bit of a drive. It's not like right around the corner from where I live. So it was really just her and I for quite some time. And so anytime there were appointments that she couldn't drive or the medications, it just became more and more where I would have to assist her with these medications. I became the caregiver. And then at one point, a real sharp turning point for, I believe, our relationship. It had been difficult at times over the years, but we were in a relatively okay place when she moved here. At one point, a dear close friend of mine also died by suicide. And when I say close friend, I mean a really, really incredibly close friend. Just heartbreaking, heart-wrenching death. And as you can imagine, for both she and I, that triggered and brought up a lot of deep, deep hurt. And we had a lot of arguments over it. We had some conversations, but mostly we just had arguments because I didn't feel like she was supporting me through the loss of my friend, who he was my friend, and she knew him as well and took him on as like a second son, but he was my friend. I considered him a brother, and I didn't feel like she was honoring that grief and that pain that I was dealing with, and I would try to, as best I could, understand what she was facing, having lost my sister many years ago. Obviously, as a parent, the loss of a child, especially to death by suicide, is you never get over that. That is the deepest cut ever, and I respect that and I understand that, but it was a very difficult situation. She didn't feel like I was understanding where she was coming from. I didn't feel like she was understanding where I was coming from. So that was a huge turning point, and we just had stresses from that point forward, and then her health really started to deteriorate. She had, to the point where she was just kind of becoming a little delirious on occasion. There was one instance where she was trying to go drive back upstate to go visit my brother. She got disoriented and she wound up driving around Long Island for 3-4 hours before she finally got in touch with myself and my boyfriend, who on that day were at the wake of a friend's son who also died by suicide. Very heavy day. She's disoriented. She's driving around. She's on the southern state. We find her on the southern state, and at one point she got so frustrated. I'm sure it was at me because I was frustrated with her, and she literally kicked her car and turned and started to walk towards the highway as if she were going to walk into traffic. Massive turn for her. And there was a look in her eye, there was a disorientation that was there that was just staggering. And ultimately I wound up bringing her into the doctor. She had some blood work. Her blood sugar at that point was over 400. We brought her to the hospital, got her checked out. They couldn't even run tests. Her blood sugar was so high. It had turned out she stopped taking her medication for 3 months at that point, all of her medications. So it really became this daily struggle to deal with her physical health and her mental health for quite some time. We got her back on track. She got back on her medications. We, some other medical interventions and things like that. And then, and I'm a little hazy on the timing, but then in early 2019, she had a massive episode throughout the day where she was just very lethargic, painful, full of pain, not feeling well. I tried to get her to eat things. I kind of figured maybe her blood sugar was down. She had been at that point taking care of her own blood sugar, doing her testing and things like that. So I didn't really test her blood sugar until later in the day, but I did try to make sure she was eating because sometimes she wouldn't eat. She couldn't eat that day. She tried a couple of times. She just couldn't eat that day. Eventually we checked her blood sugar, and the little reader that we had at home said it was too high. We brought her, I called the 911, got her to the hospital. It was over 700. She had a massive heart attack, and then she spent the next 9 months in the hospital, between the hospital and the nursing home, 9 months before she ultimately passed in January of 2020. That was an incredibly stressful time. During all that time, I had a full-time job. I was trying to take care of my house. I was in a very serious relationship that was, how many years at that point? 6, maybe 7 years at that point. no, not maybe 6 years, who, he had a large family, and they took me in as part of their family. And so I'm part of this huge family, as well as trying to take care of, so living within, and just being a part of a family, doing things that families do, being at parties, and trying to do that, and trying to take care of myself as best I can, wasn't working. It wasn't working. It was day to day, every single day, morning, noon, and night, worrying about something, whether it be my mom, whether it be my relationship, whether it be myself, my house. It was just constant. My career, I had been at my career for about 23 years at that point, and I felt that was coming to an end. So the end of 2019, I took a buyout at that company after 23 years, intending and having all the best laid plans of the world for 2020 to start a new career. I was starting to put that in motion. After my mom passed in January, I gave myself some time to grieve, some time to deal with her affairs. I'm starting to get emotional. To deal with her affairs, to try and get my life settled and regroup and replan and re-strategize and move forward with a potentially different career. And then the pandemic hit, and that got knocked off the rails, just like everybody else in the world.